a YouTube video today. But we are, and I'll make this public, and I'll share this, and we'll be ready to go.
And I want to pose a question. Are podcasters considered essential workers?
In my state, they are.
Right.
Yeah. I can't go fishing though, but I can. Okay, let's see here. Record button's hit. All right, let me go ahead and fire this here. Hey everyone, welcome to the New Media Show. My name is Todd Cochran. Of course, I'm joined by my co-host, Mr. Rob Greenlee. Good morning, Rob. How are you?
I'm doing terrific, Todd. You know, as terrific as I am, I'm still, hanging in there. I'm not stir crazy, working from home. So
well, that's good. And yesterday, my team, I kind of felt it on Thursday. I felt a little like melancholy, I guess. I don't know if I even had a little mild, I wouldn't call it depression, but I was kind of like, I was going stir crazy. So I kind of talked with Barry and I talked to Angelo, and we kind of decided, if we're kind of feeling stir crazy, I bet the rest of the team is. So yesterday morning when we had our team meeting, I said, we're going to do an Aloha Friday. And what that really means is early secure.
Yeah.
So
take a day off, right?
Yeah. So
right.
Yeah, we let everybody go home at noon, and it wasn't too hard to go on the morning meetings and stuff. And I know it kind of did me some good. I just kind of did a few runaround stuff, some stuff for fun, and I think it helped a little bit. But I did have a major catastrophe happen though yesterday, Rob.
Yeah, it's probably visible, right?
It is visible.
Yes.
I decided to give myself a haircut, and the haircut went really bad. And there was no way to recover. I kept going higher and higher, looking in the mirror and,
Right.
going forward to sit aft and
just start over, right?
And I just said, hell with it, and I just shaved it all off.
Well, sometimes that's the better choice, I suppose.
So
the question is, are you going to let it grow back in?
Nah, I'm going to go with this for a while. We'll see how it goes.
Okay.
So I did have to order. I went online in Amazon. I looked for anti-glare.
So you should talk to Rob about that.
Yeah, so I actually found some stuff. So I found the anti-glare stuff on. But anyway, so yeah, I've joined the Bald Hair Club or Bald Head Club, whatever you want to call it.
Well, it is a very clean look, I have to say.
It is, and and I've always had a high haircut anyway, so it wasn't much of a stretch. And plus, I had gray and then brown, and then maybe 1,000 hairs on top of my head still.
Right.
Maybe, or 500 maybe.
Yeah.
So yeah, but you don't have that problem. You've got plenty of hair.
Yeah, it's falling out though. It's getting there.
So, I gave up the comb over look about 5 years ago and just mowed the top and but it's just
break out the weed whacker, right, Todd?
Well, here's the sad part though, is just like the rest of my body doesn't have an issue, just the top of my head. So
what is the deal with that? Right?
I don't get it. It's bizarre.
Right.
But anyway, no, we don't need to talk more about body hair. But yes, the bald look, for those of you who are watching me, few people said, hey, welcome to the club. Of course, I know Sean Thorpe, he's been doing the bald thing for a while. He's watching. So if you are watching us live, make sure you check in and say hello.
Yes, it is an exclusive club, Todd.
But my mom actually said, can I touch your head? And I'm like, no, that's just weird.
That's funny.
Anyway, we'll see how many people actually want to touch and rub the top of my head now. So I guess someone told me that's a thing. So
did we learn anything different from our Wednesday episode this week?
Boy.
I mean, we didn't really, push for getting call-ins.
No.
But we did talk about a lot of stuff, and it stirred up a little bit of controversy. I think when we do the live real-time diagnosis of a slide, we sometimes get in trouble, don't we,
It
Todd?
would piss Tom Webster off. He was mad.
Right.
He was angry. But, here's the thing. I deal with real data.
Yeah.
This is my challenge, is I deal with real numbers.
Right. Off of servers.
Right. I look at big, broad views. I don't have 2,000
global
people.
views.
Yeah,
Global views. Really.
Right. I look at real numbers. And when I look at my real numbers, and if I just take my numbers, and I know what your numbers are, I know what everybody's numbers are.
And they're not that much different from each other.
Well, right. I don't know your measurement numbers, but I know your show numbers.
Right.
Right. And if I extrapolate that out and use some averages, and and just some volume numbers,
it's just ballpark stuff, right?
If I know 10,000 shows will deliver me X number of downloads.
The simple math equation.
It's simple. And it's okay. It's plus or minus 1 million or 2 million or whatever.
Yeah.
But we're talking millions of downloads, not 1,000 difference.
Right.
And then when someone I stand by my projection that the top 5 network shows in existence today reach anywhere. I'm just going to, again, 15 to 20% of the
total downloads. Right.
Well, unique audience is what they were.
Right. Well, he was talking about more. It's more of a radio analogy. It's more impressions, right? It's audience impressions is what he's talking about, which is, it's not really a metric that's directly applicable to podcasting. Nobody's really tracking that metric in podcasting. It's a radio methodology is what it is.
Well, again, just based on my real numbers, those 5 networks consisting of 800 shows do not reach 50%. It's absolutely impossible that those 800 shows reach 50% of the non-duplicative audience in America that's listening to podcasts. It's simply impossible.
Right.
And it is what it is. And people can define their methodology all they want. That's fine. I'm cool. And we can agree to disagree. But it brings me back to the point that, as a matter of fact, I named this show after today. Our indie podcasters, are they being basically, underreported? Are they being under considered? Are they being under appreciated?
Well, that's
undervalued.
What that slide really drove home to me when I looked at it was an orientation towards favoring the big networks as more important than anything else.
So I get defensive, and not just from a business standpoint, but I'm an indie podcaster.
Right.
It
depends on your orientation to the data, right?
Right.
I mean, that's an important factor as well. So when you put out research that is skewed one way or another in a market, there's a risk of getting blowback on that. And that's kind of what happened here.
So someone, he said, I made myself look bad. I don't feel so. I don't feel I made myself look bad. No. I feel
to who did you make yourself look bad to is the question, right?
Oh, I don't answer to those people.
No, exactly. And that's kind of my bigger point. And that's what this show is about. This show is about the big picture of podcasting, not about catering to a particular segment of the podcasting space, which we have other media sources in the podcasting space that cater to segments of the industry, right? We've talked about Nick Quah. We've talked about others that cater to certain segments in the industry. We try on this show, we're probably biased more towards the indie side because that's who we work with every day. Now, granted, I do work with big media companies, and I do work with the big players as well at times, but the vast majority of what you and I do in this space and where we come from is from the indie space.
Yeah, 80% of what
Right.
I do is work with indie podcasters.
And we're very defensive of that side of the industry because we both know how important it is.
And I work with indie podcasters that have
Right.
big networks
Right.
that aren't necessarily considered a iHeart or a whatever.
NPR.
Right, right. And they have
Or a Gimlet.
and they have big numbers and they make big money.
They are just not considered oftentimes in these conversations
No.
because they're not part of PodTrack.
No. If I took Tech Podcast Network as an example, and we're not even really an active network. We're
Right.
a loose assortment of 80 some shows.
Right.
And if I took all those numbers of those shows, we'd be in the top 10 of
Right.
that listing that was over on PodTrack. And it's just that's just a loose association, not even really organized anymore. We just kind of are part of a group that we have a little bit of discussion online. We don't monetize together anymore, but those collective numbers would put them at number 10.
Right.
And it's
Right.
80 indie, absolute indie podcaster.
Right.
So when someone says to me, or when someone states that these 5 networks, it's just the space is much bigger than that.
Right. Exactly. And also, there's another side to this too. I mean, Rob Walsh puts up in his presentation sometimes a slide that shows where Libsyn is compared as far as unique audience to podcasts that we deliver off of our network, how it ranks against the biggest listening platforms. So like Pandora and Spotify.
Right.
We're bigger than the biggest streaming media or streaming music platform in the world as far as how many unique people that we deliver content to.
Right.
And that's what a lot of people don't factor in all this in these discussions because they're only looking at a narrow set of data. Yeah.
And also we're looking at global too.
Right.
You know, I can name 3 shows that are out of Brazil, just individual shows
Right.
that knock 3 of those shows out of the top 10 ranking. Matter of fact, knock a couple of them out of
Right.
the top 3. So, and there's one show.
One show, right.
So,
I mean, just one show like Joe Rogan, which isn't part of any network, has billions of downloads in the last few years. That's not factored in any of these
no,
numbers.
it's not.
Right.
My little show, my personal little show, Geek News Central. You know, I revealed a little bit of how that show has done over the years, monetary wise.
Right.
It's done damn well.
Right.
It's not as
Sure
I'm not making as much money as I was 5 years ago with that show.
Right. Right.
But it's still, on a scheme of things, from a monetization standpoint, probably makes, from a money standpoint, probably more money than 95% of all shows in podcasting.
Right.
You know, but it's still a small indie show. I'm not
Right.
getting rich. I'm paying the rent, keeping the lights on,
Right.
air conditions running, you know, all that
Right.
stuff. I'm not getting rich on that.
Right.
So, but it still does well, and it will continue to do well as long as the sponsor's happy. It'll continue to do well. But you know, and it's not even that massive of an audience that, you know. So you know, there's 2 ways to look at this too. So,
Right.
I don't know. I know Tom was upset. If we just have to agree to disagree.
But he needs to realize that that slide touched a nerve. You know, and that's what happened. That's the reaction that you get. So,
And I think that's what happens too when you look at, because I deal with actuals, Tom deals with survey data and their
Right.
tools and whatever they plug into their mathematical formulas to come up with the thing that they come up with.
Right.
But
And
we just crossed 1 million, and it was just announced. We crossed 1 million podcast in
Right.
Apple Podcast.
Right.
And Danny will have to tell us how many of those shows are active. I think we have more than 350,000 shows that are active, meaning have published a podcast in the last 30 days or so.
Yeah.
And that's, if you look at where we were 2 years ago or even 18 months ago, that's an extraordinary number of active shows in the podcasting space compared to where we've been in the past.
Right. Total shows.
Total shows.
I mean, I can just talk about it just briefly from the perspective of my work on the Zune podcast platform back in the early days of the medium. I had at the end of 4 years or 5 years working on that platform about 35,000 shows.
Mm-hmm.
And I think at that time, Apple, I think maybe had a couple 100,000. And that was back in like 2011, 12 timeframe.
Mm-hmm.
And it just tells you how far and how rapidly the content side has grown in this space. And I've always been concerned about the growth of the listener side as the content side has grown, because there has to be an equilibrium here. And then I raised some concern too, and I've been thinking about this a lot too, is that if we're seeing an explosion of new content right now in the podcasting space, but yet we're seeing some networks like ours and others that are reporting steep declines in audience, I'm concerned that things could get out of balance. I don't know, Todd, if that's even something I should be worried about.
Well, Daniel's in chat and he said nearly 200,000 podcasts have published an episode in the last 7 days. That's the most active it's ever been. And here's his slide. And if we look at it, June of last year, we were at 700,000 shows, and we've added 300,000 shows between June and April. Think about that.
Right.
Think about that number. Now, I will go back and I will contend, Rob, when I hear Rob Walsh say that the average show still only has 149 listeners, I shudder at that, because that's not what we see. And by far our number is, Blueberry's number is much, much higher. I mean, much higher. And again,
as far as average
listeners per episode. And I largely believe it maybe goes back to, again, I don't know the exact way he looks at it. I know the way we look at it, and I know that we see a much higher number, and it's continued to grow.
I think he says it's a median number versus, are you talking about an average number? I'm not sure.
Well, we'll have to go back and look at his slide.
Right.
But, the majority, and I say the majority, again, our number is much, much higher. So for me, it gives me a lot more hope that even though
is it double, or is it 25% higher or something like that?
It's much higher. It's close to 4 digits.
Oh, okay.
So, and again, there's some that are really big, some that are really small, but again,
it's the average.
Yeah, the average.
Right.
And if he's using a median, what's the difference between median and average? That's.
Well, it takes out, I think median tends to take out outliers.
So if I don't take out the outliers.
Right.
But again,
the number's going to be higher.
Yeah, the number's going to be higher. But if you look at the, here in this slide that he just put up, 28,413,700 episodes available in feeds. That means there's 28 million different podcast episodes to listen to out there. That's
Todd, I wonder if that means that over some period of time, so when you add 300,000 shows to a catalog, there's probably a gradient curve, and I've never seen the gradient curve where it shows over that period of time what percentage of those new shows podfade, right? And become part of that 1/3 that are not active.
Right.
What that curve looks like. I've never seen a chart like that before.
Well, Daniel, Rob just sent you a request. So,
right.
But I think it still holds true though. And what I used to say, and maybe I should go back and really dig on this a little bit, that 50% of podcasts would not make it to episode 7, and another 50% wouldn't make it to episode 20. I've said that for years and years and years, and I'll go back and look at that. But it depends. It depends. And there's a lot of factors in that on how you see this. Okay, so the anchor out there, they have a disproportionate number of high failure shows. High failure.
Mm-hmm.
95% of their shows fail almost to begin with. And then
so when we say fail, that means they stop producing episodes after maybe 1 or 2 episodes, right?
They have a high failure rate, and I think their failure rates improved a little bit. But you take.
I mean, is it improved a lot or just a little bit?
Again, well, we should go back and actually look at the data, but we've seen historically in the past that those shows. So they have this like huge bulk of numbers that's a 1 or 2 episodes before they die, whereas I know what my churn rate is. New podcasters that come into my company, start a podcast, how many don't make it to the 30-day mark, how many get beyond that and continue, and my churn rate is really, really, really small. And when the churn rate grows, that's when your business becomes in danger. So in as long as the churn rate stays high and you have more new coming in than you have going out,
right,
you're okay, right? So I look at that churn rate real close, and I look at the people that are coming in the door. So our strategy has been help those folks in those first 30 to 45 days.
What's about retention is what you're
right. We get them going, get them in the door, get them, help them along, get them going, and then they go, and then that keeps my churn rate down.
Right.
So,
and then that's also a support issue too.
That's right.
Support keeps people happy in podcasting because they've worked through their problems that they have that may be discouraging them.
And with the bar so low now, and I shouldn't say low, the bar to entry is very, very low. You have people coming in and want to start. They don't want it. They want the easy button.
Right.
So I'm trying to make my system more easy so that first 30 days, we don't have to spend as much time helping people get going.
Yeah, it keeps costs down too.
And so, put a lot of money into that to make sure that we update our UI, UX and all that. And I think we've got a good strategy, but you still have this incredible number of people coming in, 300,000 since June.
Yeah.
That's incredible numbers. And 95, 96, 97% of them are all independent podcasters that are doing a podcast from their couch, from their living room, from a closet, getting a couple of friends together.
Yeah.
And that is very encouraging to me. And not just as a business owner, but as a content creator. There's 30 million blogs out there. We got plenty of room for podcasts.
Right. Yeah. There's not too many podcasts. Yeah. Anybody that says that there's too many podcasts doesn't really understand what's going on here.
And then whatever Apple announces next week, well, I'm sure that's going to help, kickstart some stuff if it hasn't helped already. So,
well, there's big announcements coming next week from other players too.
Wow. Right. So big announcements all across the board next week.
Right.
So if you're launching a product next week, don't announce it. You're going to get drowned out.
Yeah, unfortunately.
So Daniel, who was your winner of the 1 million? You had a contest going, right? Who was your winner? Do you have that narrowed down yet? Yes, we're in a shitty time right now with everything that's going on, but as we saw in 2008, podcasting so far, knock on wood or whatever this is, pressed wood or whatever it may be. Let me find something more solid over here. Knock on wood, it's being resilient through. Now, I'm not convinced. I think the worst is yet to come from a financial standpoint. And we'll see how this plays out throughout the next 6 to 8 months.
So Daniel also made a post in Facebook about the numbers, and he says that was it 19.7% of all podcasts, almost 200,000, have published an episode within the last 7 days.
That's huge. That's incredible, because I was using a 30-day figure.
Right.
So 200,000 in the last 7 days.
Yeah. Correct. Yeah. So, if you're an active podcaster, your competitive pool of podcasts is about 200,000 now. Right. So, yeah. So things are doing well in podcasting.
Yeah.
In spite of what's happening in the world, is what the bottom line is.
And I get back to the whole point here that you have 5 networks with 800 shows, and yet we've had, let's use some comparison here. We've had 300,000 new shows join since June of last year.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, granted that these shows are not going to be 500,000 listeners, 1.5 million listeners per episode. They're not going to have those types of numbers.
Right.
But even on those big networks, they have their anchors, and then they have shows that are smaller that don't bring in as many listeners.
Right. That's true.
So let's say you have a show that's got 40,000 listeners per episode.
Yeah. That exists on any network or any platform.
So all it takes is 40 shows to have 1,000 listeners to match that.
Right.
And we had 300,000 join since June. So,
right. We need to be regularly picking up new listeners to the medium.
Right. We have to, that's our goal as podcasters, is to grow the medium, right?
Yep.
And
in the face of changing listening patterns right now, too. People are not listening to podcasts in the same ways that they used to.
Well, changing habits means, though, that they're still listening. They just shifted the way they're listening.
And it looks like to some networks, there's been a reduction in that for whatever reason. Whether or not that's going to persist, I mean, your platform hasn't seen a big drop.
Well, here's why. How many of those networks don't? This is to me is so fundamental. And if people don't, I would take everyone that's had a drop, all those networks that have had a drop. You need to go look and say, okay, what's the makeup of those shows?
And where was the drop happening? Right?
Were they so focused on listening in the app that they never told their podcasters, their listeners, where to come find them? And if they could they even find them to begin with? Some of these networks, it's a big issue because they don't have websites. Well, they have a network website, but their show's buried somewhere in there.
Right.
So, if I'm running the Acme network and I'm a podcaster on the Acme network, and I say, okay, I'm over at acmenetwork.com/Papapalooza.
Right.
Well, that listener never going to go to that website ever.
Yeah.
But if you're listening to this show, you know that newmediashow.com is the place you go. If you're sitting at home in front of your computer, you don't need the app. You know to go to newmediashow.com.
Right.
And
especially if you want to watch the video.
That's right. And guess what, Rob? Here's the amazing thing when you come over to newmediashow.com. And this is a thing that most podcasters, many podcasters fail.
Right.
What's right there? Right there.
All the places to listen.
Play.
Right.
Play the podcast right on the site.
Right.
Oh, you want to watch the video? Boom. Let's go ahead. Let's start the video. Boom. You want to watch?
And it's right at top.
It's right there.
Right up top of the page. Right.
It's there. You can listen to it. But you go to some podcasters' websites. Hey, how many cars are on the train today, Rob? There's there are, you go to some podcasters' websites, you got to go 5 pages in to find the show. Look at your website. You muted yourself, didn't you? I know you did. He doesn't want anybody to hear the train going by.
Well, it's disruptive. Come on.
So if you buried your show on your website and the only place you can get your show is on the app, or you've only ever talked about the app, yeah, maybe your numbers have dropped for a reason. I mean, maybe not. Maybe you've done a sports show and there's no sport. So there's a whole bunch of factors that goes into why your audiences drop during COVID-19. In my opinion, it's non-scientific.
Well, I think
it's a hypothesis.
Totally not non-science. But I have seen some of the data come back showing that listening in the browser on a computer has actually gone up again, which has been falling for years. So that may be, a factor in the numbers too, right?
So I saw some post someone put out there, make sure you've got a good player on your website. It's like all of a sudden that was like this, oh my God, that's a revelation. Have a player on your website. I'm like,
really? Right. Yeah.
Yeah, no kidding.
That's been important for years. I think it's become, I think prior to this, it had become less important because people were listening more on their mobile devices.
Yeah.
But the numbers have kind of shifted as the listener behavior has shifted a little bit. No.
So go to if those of you that have listening, go to your web analytics, load Google Analytics or whatever analytics page you have, not your podcast analytics, your web analytics.
Right.
And go to your website where it's someplace that's going to show you how long someone stayed on your homepage.
Right.
Now, on my personal Geek News Central page, I'm very, very proud of this statistic. And I'm going to load it here. So, oops, it's not updated yet. There it goes. So, this episode's not always at the top. So, if one of my writers writes an article, it's going to fall off the top page. It's going to go down a little further. But what I find, because I have fresh content on this page almost every day, is that when people come to this page, more than 50% of the people that land on the page stay more than 2 minutes. More than 50% of the people that land on this page stay for 2 minutes. Most podcast pages, what happens is that about 90% of the people stay less than 5 seconds, and 5% stays for a little bit time longer. But because I built this site to have content, more than 50% of the people that come to this page stay for 2 minutes. And that's why, guess what I get? I still have a high percentage of people that click play because they've scrolled through they've read a couple of articles. They come through, oh yeah, what else is going on? Got something there going on. Gets down a little further, and then bam, guess what I have? I have someone that's click play on the podcast.
Right.
But most sites, most podcasters' homepages, they haven't added extra content to them. So there's no reason for people that land on that page to stay more than a few seconds because, there's nothing here. So again, it's part of a multitask strategy. And again, everyone continues to say, oh, you don't need a website. You don't need a website. You don't need a website. Well, go. You don't want to build an audience, don't have a website.
Right.
But at the same point, they know at least they can subscribe to the show when they get to it if they don't listen to the podcast. A small percentage will. But again, it's all in this world we're living in. If people are listening to more stuff on your website, you better have a damn player on your website.
Right.
On the homepage.
Well, it is a fundamental thing. I think I agree with you, Todd. I think every podcast does need a website, its own separate branded experience that is well able to be found in the search engines.
Rob, you need to come. You ready to come to work for Blueberry?
Well, no, I mean, I mean, you look at any of the. It doesn't matter what hosting platform that you're on. It's more to do with, you need to be thinking about your availability on the web and the internet.
So many shows, they just don't have a place to, they just don't have. You just go to pick some of your favorite podcasts and go to the ones you listen to as a podcaster. Go to their websites and look at it. Can you get to that content quickly? Can you get there? And so if someone's coming to your website with COVID-19, but I do find it interesting though that this usage is quote unquote potentially dropping. I still find, because my phone's always with me, I'm still listening to all my podcasts on my phone.
Necessarily, it just may mean that people are watching. I don't know. It's hard to say. I haven't seen the metric on that to see if it's actually dropping or if it's people are just. I mean, if the numbers are dropping a little bit, I guess it's reasonable to think that there's a shift happening and that people are doing it less on mobile. Yeah.
So, I'm going to use a network that's really known for great, and this is the Quick and Dirty Tips site. You can't listen to anything on the front page. You can't. And I just wonder how they're, here's something. Okay. So how the COVID-19 CARE Act affects your retirement. Click on that. Below the fold is the player. Well, are people coming to their website and listen? It'd be interesting to hear from our friends over there. Are they seeing any uptick on their website? And what is the click-through rate on their homepage, to get to content?
Right.
So, and they have very good, look, if you guys want to do some study and, I'll say it again, no one in this space does long-tail content better than Quick and Dirty Tips. They do it the best. There's no one in the space that does it better. You go to their page. So here's an episode of their Modern Mentor show, and look at the show notes.
Yeah.
Look at this. Look at this. Look at the stuff that Google has to chew on here.
Right. Well, it's also one thing you should notice here too is that there is not a lot of links, which means that the links are very targeted and have good keyword base for those links too.
This is full of, and for those of you listening, just go to Quick and Dirty Tips and look at any show, look at any episode, look at the show notes, and you wonder why a show that was released 5 years ago, they got 50,000 downloads, gets 50,000 downloads this month. It's because they have invested in making sure that there's rich metadata on their website.
Right.
That gives Google something to chew on. No one does it better. You want to copy a network, this is the network to copy.
Right.
The formula. You want to grow your show with this traffic that comes in.
Yeah.
And they get it multiple ways. They don't just get it come to the website.
But also, you have to keep in mind too that Quick and Dirty Tips didn't build what they have overnight.
No. They've been in it from the beginning.
Right. That network has been operating and refining their content and refining how they produce content for 12 years, 14 years, 15 years. I don't know how long when they started, but I know it's been a long time.
And it's what I've always said too is this is a 2 to 3 year haul to build some. You have to build authority. You're starting a podcast today, unless you have pre-authority or any type of network of people or a list or anything like that. You're starting from ground zero, so you have to build authority. You have to be the authority in your topic.
Right. And you have to diligently, day after day, build that
authority.
Right. It doesn't just come to you.
Authority, trust, all that stuff. So It's just fundamental, very basic fundamental stuff. But guess what? It's work.
It's work, and it can be done.
Right.
And people have done it for years.
Yeah. So I hate to go back to my site, but it's just like I didn't know what I was doing. Did not know what I was doing when I started this. I had no idea what the end result would be. Well, let's just go and let's look at how many posts. So I have 14,748 blog posts on the website. Yeah, did I know in October of 2004 that putting up blog posts would be a lead gen for my podcast? I had no clue.
Well, I did the same thing when I started my show. I built a custom built blog. That was pre-WordPress.
Right. I was on Movable Type to begin with. So again, it's not, this is just one piece of many for growing a show. But if we're having this resurgence of people that are looking on, and again, what this is a reference to is the supposed uptick in people that are listening to podcasts via their Chrome, Safari, all these browsers.
Right. Or now Edge, which is
growing
in its usage.
And maybe you don't see an uptick. Maybe it's 1-2%. Maybe you're not seeing an uptick. But if you're not seeing an uptick, okay, are you making it easy for listeners to do this? So I think we've hammered enough on this, and it's not something we haven't talked about before here, but.
Well, you've been talking about it like every year prior to the podcast awards.
Well, I would go to people's webs. I run a script before that would go through websites, and it would look for the Apple Podcast, it would look for Subscribe on Android, and it would look for Stitcher and all those. We would pull the websites to try to find out where their players were, and it was atrocious. And I haven't done that in a long time.
Right.
Because it quite frankly just got to be quite discouraging, and then people would say, "Oh, my podcast is not growing."
Yeah. Well, Todd, it may be time to bring it back.
Well, maybe, but at the same time, it's just one of probably 20 different things you have to do.
Right.
You got to do the social. You got to build an email list. All these things.
Right. Yeah.
Feed the beast.
It's all work. It's all consistency. It's doing it when you don't feel like it. All those things.
Oh, that's what my blogger bill is about $600 a month. I used to do that work myself. I don't have time to blog anymore.
Right.
So, but if you are new and trying to build your audience and don't have to run a podcasting company at the same, if I wasn't running Blueberry, I wouldn't be paying writers. I would be writing myself. I'd be doing all my articles myself, as bad as they probably would be. But, probably half of the content that's on that site was all written by me in those early days because I didn't have a budget.
Right. Right.
And, and again, it's...
Well, Todd, it's true. When both of us kind of got started in this, the website was really the only vehicle to find listeners.
Only vehicle.
I mean, that's what my experience was when I started doing my show in 1999.
Yeah, it was the only vehicle.
That was the only way that I could get, because there were no podcast listening.
There was no Twitter. There was no Facebook. There was no social media. There was nothing. And again, I don't want to be an old curmudgeon in here because, again, I'll repeat. Your website is one piece of many things you have to do. Right. Yeah, one piece of many that you have to do.
Right. And I guess the question is, what are any new pieces?
I think it's, you can create a book from your podcast, from interviews you're doing.
Right.
You've got email lists that are easily to be adapted.
That's what Mignon did with Grammar Girl. Was she got on TV shows, she wrote a book, she did audiobooks, she did all these other mediums.
TV, radio. You got to do all of them, you have to do all that stuff. You got to go speak.
Well, which is harder to do now.
right now. But if things open up again and you're doing a podcast in your local community, go talk to the Rotary. Go talk to, start getting the word out. Ask to speak at events when events start speaking of it that surround your topic.
Todd, I did see on Facebook you posted about you're still playing around with Second Life.
Yes, I am. I am playing around with Second Life. Matter of fact, I wonder if I can show this without crashing the whole thing. So, being locked down, you got a little time to just kind of do stuff. Let's see here.
Play around with something that may be old but new.
Old but new. And let me log in here. And let's see if I can actually.
Yeah, I thought that your post sparked some interesting comments from people.
Yeah, it did. Let me turn
around. Lots of people have had experience with Second Life.
All right, so maybe I can show it. Let me look. Yes, I can. So let's walk into. Let's see if I can make this work.
You have been a busy boy, Todd.
Yes, I have. Can I walk around in here? Oh, yes, I can.
Now, what Todd is showing on the screen is his building in Second Life.
That's right.
Yeah, and there's an avatar on the screen that is looking at what we're looking at, and it looks like it could be an employee of Blueberry.
Yeah, that's me. So what I have built here, and just so everybody knows, this is what I have rented. I rented some land that, for the audience that's listening, cost me about $20 a month. No, $20 a week. So this is not a small investment in what I've done for the amount of space I have. So
that's a lot of room in there.
It's a lot of room.
Party in there, Todd.
So we can have up to 25 avatars in here. So it's still not a lot of avatars, but if we ever did, this is just a proof of concept. So this is basically a place where people could advertise their shows, and we could have videos and audio playing and other stuff like that. And then I built another building, or actually I bought a building, and I didn't have to prefab any of this. I'm not an artist. And what we're doing is we're walking across the courtyard here. And this is basically a place where we could do training events, hang out, have social gatherings. There's a bar in here. None of this has been, again, I slapped this together pretty quickly. So again, we can have social operations. And then I put over in the corner here, and for those of you that are listening, we are walking through Second Life right now, I've got two buildings set over here for example, Podbean could rent this, or Libsyn could rent this, or could end up being, and, during an event that you're having, you could station or even have a couple of Blueberry employees or a couple of Podbean employees in here and hang out and talk. And you can talk by voice, or you can talk by voice, or you can.
And Todd, you don't even have to worry about air conditioning.
No air conditioning. And again, is this something that can be used? I don't know. Again, and what it is, though, it is kind of avatar limited. If we were going to do an event, we could have up to 100 avatars, but I would have to it would be about I could probably get that going for about $200 a month.
So there's a cap on how many avatars can visit?
Right, in a space, yeah. So if I was to basically take what I built here and put it on what I would call be a dedicated island, I would minimize the amount of structures and stuff that would be going on here, and we could probably get more avatars in and not get laggy. Or you just pay for more CPU. It's just like anything else. Right. So, but again, this is the idea of what could be. And actually, let's see if I can. We'll take them outside. People haven't seen. You can actually fly in Second Life.
Right.
So this is my old profile, Rob, from 2006.
So you're on an island here, or are you just on a piece of property on somebody else's?
I have rented 1/4 of an island is what I have done.
Okay, gotcha.
And let's see if I can. And this is an adult themed island, but I looked around to make sure that there wasn't too much crazy stuff going on. The people that live over here have some, but I can geofence this, that only invited guests can get in. But again, this is a 1/4 of an island. And again, I probably put 3-4 hours into this so far.
So somebody over there who owns the property next to you has a boat.
Yeah,
crashed.
I just crashed. Yeah, I fell. But anyway, so that
just
gives,
the fact that you can fall is an interesting
yeah
thing too, right?
And you can push and shove, and but if I didn't have this geo block, someone could show up here and all kinds of weird wear. And matter of fact, they could, because it's an adult oriented. And if I was to build or rent my own island, I would make it non-adult, so that people that were showing any type of adult theme would not be allowed in. But anyway, so again, there's a lot you can do here. And instead of having lots of Second Life stuff is around clubs, but you could set that up as a board, and you could have a PowerPoint presentation in there, and you could have live video streaming. We could put the new media show live stream right inside Second Life. You could be standing here watching the show now and talking to people that way as well. So there's lots of, but again, you're limited. Your avatar limited.
But that can be overcome through just more investment.
More investment in CPU.
And paying. So, do you pay the owner of the island?
I do.
To build on that island?
Yeah, and
what you're doing?
I paid a month ahead. So I'm just and I don't know if I'm just trying to see what's new in Second Life, to see if there's even, can I do live, or does it have to be a can I come in here like I am now, put myself on a screen in there? But then again, what you got to do is you got to get people to be able to sign up. They got to be able to find you. It's not something easy to be done.
Well, and you have to create an account in Second Life.
That's right.
Create your avatar, and you have to have your own presence in there.
That's right.
There's going to, you may want to build your own property in there too, if you want to, but people can just join Second Life and just build an avatar and then do stuff.
That's correct. Life. And again, so if you're going to do something in Second Life, you really have to build a community, build a group. But, in 2006, when we all started doing this,
playing around with it, right?
There was 500 podcasters in Second Life.
Yeah, I was active in there too.
And we were all in there hanging out. But, now, but you got to remember, Rob, we didn't have Zoom then.
Right.
So
and people were doing live shows in there. I mean, I remember people were doing live podcasts inside of Second Life.
So it's just a different twist. Is it worth the effort? Again, that's why I'm renting. I didn't buy anything, because I can just turn it off and it'll go away. Is it worth doing something in Second Life? Or is it just
going to participate?
Right.
Is the question,
or is it better just have a Zoom thing where you have 30 people on Zoom? So, or you just do something here on Facebook.
Right.
But the problem is what could be happening right now, if this was being done in Second Life, if we were streaming this in Second Life, was if the avatars were in that virtual world together, they could all have conversations with each other. And it's not like you could have one-on-one conversations and it wouldn't be showing up on Facebook.
Right.
You could have private conversations back and forth.
Right. Kind of like what you do at a conference.
That's right. And so is that something that will work in this new space we're in? I don't know. Again, I don't think you could have a podcast movement in Second Life. The amount of money you would have to have 2,000 or 3,000, that would be, I don't even want to think about the cost. Another one, the technology, you'd have to have a whole team that would be like, how do you get from your new user account to the
Todd, think
pavilion?
About how much they spend to put on a real
podcast
podcast
it's true.
movement.
It's true.
I mean, what? $100,000,
Right.
$200,000.
And what I've done there, I could take that building that I bought. I can basically, what's kind of funny is I can take a copy of it the way it is, and I can drop that somewhere else. I could have 10 of those buildings separated with different signage on them where people could go into.
Right.
And it's again though, it's a lot of, it'd be a lot of work to just get set up,
Right.
for an
I mean, if
event.
you have separate meeting rooms and you have separate topics and they're going on at a certain time, it also gets back to time zones too. I mean, it's a global platform.
That's right. So, I don't know. We'll see over time. So again, and for what you saw there, I probably got four solid hours of work. Well, what it was the first place I bought was too small. And then I said, okay, I abandoned that. So I wasted about an hour and a half on a different property, and I went over and got this one, and everything. There's a lot of adult stuff in Second Life, so it's very, very hard to find a big property like what I just showed you that is owned by someone else that's set to non-adult. So, any of you that haven't played with Second Life that's watching today, it just gives you an idea what the potential is. And if you do set up a Second Life account, my name in Second Life is Todd Levitt, Levitt. You can, and I advertise the position. I'll probably set up a group, join the group. But again, I'm just experimenting at this point in the evening. And
so why did you use Todd Levitt?
that's what I had 2006. Who knows? You had to choose. Back, you can set your username to anything you want. Now I probably will change it. But back in the early days when I set the account up, there was only like 10 last names you could use. So I just haven't changed it from the 2006 account. But what was funny...
because I think back then, people were more concerned about being anonymous.
Yeah.
Back then.
And what's funny about this thing now, Rob, is when I hadn't been in there in 10 or plus years, and I had Linden dollars drawing, and that's their currency inside Second Life. I had Linden dollars drawing interest. So when I went in there, I actually have about, in real dollars, I have about $600 in credits in there.
And Linden is the name of the company that created Second Life, just to, put those pieces together.
So I've got like 130,000 Linden dollars, which equals about 600 real US dollars to spend. So I'm not spending any personal money right now. I'm just using the money I had over those 10 years. That account was inactive, but what was kind of funny is when it cost me $30 to reactivate the account, and they credited me all my interest, had all my inventory. I was blown away. So little did I know I had $600 of real world dollars to spend in Second Life. And, stuff in there is cheap. It costs you 10 Linden dollars to upload an image or something like that. So,
yeah, it's almost, I mean, it's interesting. I can't remember if the Linden dollars were before Bitcoin.
No, they weren't. I wish they were.
Yeah.
If they were, I'd be rich. But, the guy that got us into, one of the guys that got us into Second Life big was, he's in Washington now. His name in Second Life is Spin Martin. I
can't remember either.
He had an early podcasting company. He actually claimed it was one of the first. What is his name? Someone will help me out here. But anyway, it is what it is. But I'd be open. If anybody else, of course, this isn't a VR world. Linden does have a VR platform, but not the same as Second Life. So I'm kind of curious if anyone else has used any virtual training platforms before. What have you used? Because I'm definitely open to exploring all that.
I mean, it is a little perplexing why this wouldn't be a possible use target for VR.
I don't think their server infrastructure is set up. They spun off. The matter of fact, a separate division, separate company or a separate site that does it on VR headset. But no one's going to sit on VR headset for 8 hours in a conference either. But Matter of fact, the buildings I bought were designed by a guy that has moved all his talents into their virtual VR world.
I mean, I think it is true. I mean, it's been a little surprising to me how slow VR has evolved and developed. I know a lot of, like Robert Scoble was like evangelizing this stuff for years and years, saying it was right around the corner, but it just hasn't evolved into something that large numbers of people have gotten involved in. And I'm not sure why. I know Facebook went out and invested in Oculus, and it just, nothing has really come from it.
It's expensive. It's a cost of a computer to get a headset, a VR headset, and you got to have significant hardware to run it too.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. Again, I'm just playing around. I'm a geek, but I don't think that your average. I think just Zoom, or live streaming like we're doing now is probably more effective than trying to make people jump through the hurdles to get into a VR world so that they can. But the advantage is really what the advantage is it kind of gives you that sense. You can go up, and if I'm standing there, someone come up to me and tap me, and we can have a private audio conversation, not just chat. You can have it's a private conversation back and forth. So
right.
Whereas here in Facebook, Rick made a comment. I can't really have a private conversation with Rick right now in this. So there's these trade-offs, right?
Yeah. Which is what you can kind of do at a regular conference. You can meet with someone and sit down and have a somewhat private conference or meeting.
But if someone's got a VR, or not even VR, but some sort of online virtual meeting room thing, I don't know how that would work, with where you can actually jump into how do you do a session, Rob, where, as an example, if you're the presenter at an event and you've got 50 people that are in the room listening to you, and then it's time for Q&A time, that facilitation is not as easy. You can't have multiple channels going. If you're trying to have 10 tracks running, how do you do 10 tracks?
Well, I think it depends on what room you're in, right?
Well, or what?
I mean, is that what you're talking about?
Well, no, I'm talking about the way we're doing this right now. You would have to have 10 separate streams running. So if you're doing 10 tracks, this could be quote unquote how do you facilitate 10 different tracks and get people all? That's, maybe you have a landing site that you go to, and you've got 10 different live streams going on that are being moderated by 10 different people, and you just via the website, you pick your poison and go into that Facebook Live.
Life basically allow, that would mean that each of the presenters would need to be almost like an admin, right?
There would have to be some coordination. You would definitely have to have presentations delivered beforehand. And I haven't spent a lot of time in here. I'm just trying to get my head around what's possible and what isn't possible now. And what you would do is you just hire someone that's been living in there for 10 years and be able to say, okay, I'm going to pay you. This is what I need. What's possible. You'd have to
actually manage it.
Yeah, you'd have to have a consultant, someone that's that's what they do. And again,
but it does beg the question. I mean, coming out of this COVID thing, are we dealing with a different reality, right? Where people feel fearful of meeting in reality in large groups, and I think we all want events to come back in some way, but how long, who knows? We may never get back to large events again. I don't know. I think it's an unknown answer to a question.
But is right now that particular property, I've got it locked. You can't just go there. You can't show up. You'll get kicked out of the property.
Right.
And I would have to advance. You have to sign up. You have to let me know your name. I have to make you a part of the group. You're allowed in because I don't want someone showing up on the as an avatar with boobs hanging out, or worse. Someone walking around naked. There's all kinds of crazy things that happen there. So you have to be on the right VR setting where it's not mature and all this other stuff that's going on.
But that's a reflection of reality, right?
Right.
I mean, a regular conference like Podcast Movement has to deal with all those same things.
Yeah. Hey, Daniel, there is Second Life Consultants out there. There is. You see them advertised all over the place. Just Google, and they will build you what you want. They make their livings off of this world within a world.
And it's an interesting question. Are those folks busier than ever right now?
Who knows? You
we may be coming into a new era, Todd, in the utilization of these type of platforms.
Yeah,
I don't know.
It hasn't, but here's the thing. From what it was in 2006 to what it is in 2020, it hasn't come that far.
Yeah, because it hasn't been something that people really focused on.
All right. There's this.
I mean, you and I were both involved in it, and what happened to our engagement with it? We stopped using it.
Yeah.
But this is a different world now that we're in.
Right. And and so again, if any of you get in there, just drop me an email and I'll add you to the group. You can visit and we can play around and see what happens. I have extra time right now in the evening, so I don't normally have extra time. So
yeah. So did you want to talk more about some podcasting stuff going on in the space? I did notice that Leo is turned 15. Mr. Leo Laporte.
I'm glad he caught up.
Yeah. And he's calling his network, This Week in Tech, a podcast network.
Oh, good. Yeah.
It's not a netcast anymore.
I think he dropped that quite a while ago.
Yeah, he did.
So, you and I had a discussion on the floor of NAB. How many years ago did we have a discussion with Lisa on that? How long has that been? 3 years?
Yeah, probably. That sounds about right.
Didn't she indicate that Leo wants to retire in a couple of years?
Oh, Leo's been saying that for years. Yeah.
So they didn't buy the property they're in there right now. I don't think they call it the Brick House anymore. What do they call it?
I'm not sure.
I haven't watched a Twitch show in more than a year.
I guess they had a This Week in Tech that had some of the past people that have been on that show in the past, like Kevin Rose and Patrick Norton and Robert Heron, joined him on a 15th year anniversary episode.
I've never been invited to participate on Twitch ever.
I've been on a show there.
So
yeah, I was on the Windows Weekly show many years back.
So I don't know what's going to happen with Twit. I thought he was looking for a successor at some point, but
no.
We'll have to ask Leo. Leo, if you get the word, what's your plans for Twit? What you going to do? Are you just going to keep working?
He's published over 16,200 episodes.
That's crazy. Of his own episodes
on the network.
Oh, that's amazing.
And I think it's like a network of, 15, 18 shows, something like that.
So what's Glenn the Geek's done 14 or 15,000. He's got a big number too. He's on every day, almost like 5 or 6 days a week.
Yeah.
On multiple shows. That's a dude that puts out some content. My God.
Yeah.
All about horses.
Yeah.
How can you talk that much about horses?
Yeah, right. Right.
It's I guess
there's a lot to talk about.
I guess so.
Yeah. But I think it's interesting. I mean, Leo was one of the early pioneers of this stuff. I mean, he did a lot of video. That's always been his love is video.
Yeah.
Audio is, I mean, he's been a big radio guy too, so audio's been important to him too, but he's always loved video. You know, you just look at his studio and it'll tell you how much he loves video.
Hey, Rick, I wouldn't I wouldn't say too loud that you've got that domain. I won't even repeat it on air here. Someone might come after the domain name. I've got a few of those kind of domain names too that people land on my landing page once in a while and send me a little comment. When you have close to 400 domain names, you pick up some ones that are interesting and closely named to other shows. Not that they're copyright violation or anything.
Right. There's been a long history, Rick, of Leo and domain names. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, so I wouldn't make that too public. In fact,
and just the trademark itself. I mean, he got into a lawsuit with Twitter at one point.
Yeah, I might delete that comment.
Right. So, right.
Yeah, I wonder what happened with that. We haven't heard nothing.
I certainly didn't see Twitter change its direction.
Oh, no, I did not either.
I'll just put it that way. Right.
Oh, that's true.
Because supposedly Leo had an agreement with the guys from Twitter that they would never get into
podcasting,
audio and video, right?
Yeah.
On their platform. But you know, as we see now, I mean, we're actually live streaming on Twitter. So, what does that tell you about how that got resolved?
Well, I think Twitter got much bigger too. So, you know,
deep pockets.
Yeah.
And then they went public, and then I'm sure they have a lot of lawyers and.
So you have to admit. Let's see if I can put this up on the screen here. You gotta admit his set looks pretty damn awesome.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, it's smaller than his other set.
I know, but he's also, here's the challenge I have in this room. The only way I get a wider view is if I punch the wall out to move the camera back. I can't move my camera back any further. So he's able to, got his, you know, so I'm kind of constrained on what you can see here.
Well, his little office studio here that he has now is definitely deeper than his old one. I mean, his old one was that back wall was a lot closer to him.
Yep, it's deeper.
But you know, I mean, Todd, I can see some influence on Leo on your set.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah,
There's
for
some
sure.
there.
Yeah. Right. Matter of fact, if I think the batteries are dead, but I've even got accent light.
But you don't turn them on? I mean,
I forget half the time to turn them on. I forget half the time.
Leo's set is full of accent lighting.
Oh, I know.
If you look at that image again, you can see, I mean, it's a very professionally done studio.
For sure.
With lighting and professional lighting and stuff. You can tell he's very experienced in television production.
Yep. And you know, if I had his kind of budget, I'd be able, you know, to make this look the same, but that wasn't the goal. I didn't want to look like Leo's set, but there is a little bit of, there are some beautiful sets in podcasting. You look at some of these shows, they've got some, you know, big rooms. They got some beautiful. But here's the thing about Leo's set is...
Well, he was a pioneer in this.
Right.
This kind of look.
For sure. But if you look at this room, what you have here is something to look at while the show's going on. You don't have to always look at Leo. You can look at the stuff. And...
It's a little bit of a distraction, though.
Yeah, it's okay. But come on, Rob. That is
a little bit. It's eye candy. Okay. It's eye candy.
Everyone that's doing live would literally die to have something like that.
Right.
It's freaking beautiful, you know, so.
Right. It is. And he spent a lot of money building his sets.
Rick says, are you 100% sure that backdrop is real? Well, that's interesting. Could that be a
green screen?
No, it's not a green screen. I don't think so. He's got a clock back there, so
that's typically not what Leo does. No. Leo builds real sets.
Yeah, he builds real sets.
I've been to his old studio.
Yep.
And unless he went green screen, which I really highly doubt, he's really into, that type of scenery in his studios.
So if you look
real world sceneries.
If you look behind his head where it's kind of purple back there, and you got the red on top. So what we're looking at is the back of Leo's room, and he's got two pillars, and then he's got the Twit logo, and then
he's got his clock back there, kind of like what you have as well.
Yep. So when I visited his studio, the Brick House, I went through and basically looked at all this lighting decor. Right. And I took pictures of that stuff. And basically what it is, it's DJ lights that you can change the LED colors on. And in the old studio in Hawaii, I had installed some of those DJ lights, and I could change the accent lighting in the room. I haven't done it in here, but my angles were a little better in Hawaii, but you could actually see. Well, let me just change here. Is that the angle I want to show? So here, if I was to really step this up, and in this view where the shot you're not in, Rob, I would put accent lighting over there.
Right.
And or maybe accent lighting above, shooting down. But really the angles here do not give me much room to add accent lighting. And then what it really does is when you put accent lighting, like I put accent lighting over there, it has a tendency to, you really have to work then on your cameras, because it throws off, because you're throwing in, you white balance your cameras, but then you've got this blues and all these other colors that are kind of coming in, and it really complicates making the shot look right. So and I'm still not completely happy even in this studio, because I feel like I'm a little white at this point. This camera's a little better. It's colorized a little better. So, it's just different ways of looking at things.
Yeah.
You look at your set, you've started to add some color in your stuff. Yeah. And get some stuff going on back there. Tell you like Coke.
Well, and I also added accent lights behind me too, because what the accent light does behind me is it helps better balance out the image of me, because it creates a visual background that has light as well. Because if you have a dark background and I'm lighted, it tends to create a kind of like a whiteout type of visual of me. So you have to add that background light too.
And as Daniel says, smart RGB LED bulbs can do magic. It's true. They can really, and that's what Leo does a lot in this, especially from the floor up. When you look at his set from the floor up, the stuff from the top coming down is real lights, but the stuff from the floor up is all accent lighting.
Well, he has a lot of panel lights that are above shining down.
Above shining down, right. In good colors, to a mix of colors.
Right.
And, but you walk.
If you ever walk into his studio, you'll see just a array of panels of LED lights pointed at his whole set.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. It lights different sections of the set and everything here. And here, and in this room, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 LED lights that are, trying to keep, as an example, you can still see a shadow there.
Right.
So at some point I need to add some light so that shadow isn't there. It's just little things, but I'm not a professional lighting person either. I'm just some dude that build a podcast set.
Yeah, I mean, I like kind of reflective light because it tends to cast less shadow, and I think that's a factor. And part of why this is important right now is because what we're seeing even with mainstream media is that all these anchors and all these guests on all of the major networks are doing their stuff from home now. And it's been really interesting to see all the backgrounds that all these anchors have and how they value what's behind them. Because, more and more they're starting to think about it.
Yeah.
Plus they're also starting to think more and more about their audio too. I've noticed over the last week or so. And it's starting to look better,
Yep. And one thing that most people don't know is here and here are 2 LED lights are coming in this way to try to get Phil
on
So
both sides of you.
So yeah, so that
Yeah.
so there's not a big shadow underneath my jaw per se.
From lights from above.
Right.
Right. Yeah, so you
So
have to have lights above and below
yeah.
if you're going to properly light a set. Right.
And so you walk in here, this kind of a maze. You got to walk around the lights. You get
Right.
in the cubby hole here.
Right.
So, but most people doing audio podcasts, you could care less, right? You can do it in your pajamas in your closet.
Right.
So if you're going to be doing live, it's some of these things you have to think about.
Yeah.
And a lot of it has to do with cameras too. The camera, I'm using these Point PTZ cameras, but I can't change the lens on them to change the width. And if if I had the real budget here, I would have some cameras I could change lenses on and change the shapes of things in here.
Right. And one other factor you have to do when you do stuff like this, so what we're doing right now too, is you have to factor in the light that's coming off of your flat screen that's in front of you as well. Because I've got a 32-inch flat screen monitor right in front of me that the camera is sitting on, and that actually puts off a lot of direct light into my image. So you have to factor that in too.
So my monitor in front of me is actually tilted down.
Right.
It's the head of it's faced in a little bit, and I have the brightness turned all the way down to the lowest setting as possible. Because if I get on a page that's really a web page that's really white, then it's that you get that reflection back into. And also, when I buy glasses,
you can see the screen in your glasses.
Right. I don't know if you can see them now, but I buy no glare. I have the no glare film added to my glasses too.
Right.
And it's just
you just don't wear glasses.
It's just like this too. My forehead is really bright, so you see this big bright line on my forehead. Yeah. So that's reflection from these stupid lights up here. So there's a whole science that goes into this lighting thing and getting the color set right on the cameras. My cameras are. I was going to white balance them this morning, and I ran out of time.
Well, you're using cameras that are quite different than most people doing this stuff. Most people are doing it like how I'm doing it.
Yeah,
which is
a webcam.
Just a regular webcam.
Yeah.
But you've got expensive, high resolution cameras, and that's not what I'm using. But I think it's interesting. Some of the video that I've seen on some of the larger networks, some of the guests will have like a blue face, and it's very pale look. And if they're wearing glasses, it's even worse because they haven't thought about their lighting or the coloration that comes off of their monitors too.
Right.
That's the other part of it too. Is that if you have something up on your screen that has deep, rich colors to it, it tends to give a better kind of softer feel.
So on a day-to-day basis, I don't work in this studio.
Right. Yeah, because you're out in the other room, aren't you?
I'm in the other room where I've got a big monitor that's in front of me. I don't have to put my head down.
Right.
It's part of the problem with doing the show sometimes because even on my tech show, I'm always having to look at the screen. So my eye view is down a little bit. But the reason I added the monitor behind me was so that I can actually see you, Rob, and I can actually, without having to look back, I can see you directly in front of me, and it allows us to have a better conversation.
Right.
Whereas when I was in Hawaii, I was always doing this.
Yeah.
Looking at you on the monitor, and it looked kind of weird, even though it kind of looks like I'm. So you can see if I turn my head, you can see the reflection.
Right.
But adding the monitor, and I just bought a cheap TCL monitor to put back there, and it repeats what the TriCaster sees. So. So it's just little things and it's like that demo room next door. And in the green screen room, I was having a hard time getting the green screen keyed because I couldn't see so it's just, more money.
Well, and green screens need so much light in order to work properly.
Yeah. The systems are more forgiving now. And you look at what Zoom does and basically puts a background behind you without a green screen. It's pretty impressive. But that room, all those lights, I think there's 6 lights. No, there's 5 above, 2 on the sides. Yeah, that room gets really, really bright. So then I have to dial the cameras back so it doesn't wash out.
Right.
Yeah. And then to drop so you get a good key, a good even key so that you can move around and not have spill.
Yeah. Right. And the lights, a lot of the lights need to be pointed just at the green screen.
Right.
Just to illuminate the green screen. Because what that does is that cleans up the image around your body.
Yeah.
It's trying to overlay.
And I have marks on the floor where to stand. Because if you move too far forward or move too far back, you upset the key.
Right.
And it's actually best to do a green screen where you're sitting like this instead of standing. Because you're always,
and don't move that much.
And don't move that much.
Yeah.
But I put for our Friday meeting on Zoom, I put a background behind me, and I was pretty impressed with it. Although I could see
there's
like
a little bit
of gaps, you know.
Yeah, right.
But it's keying off of multicolored walls, so it did pretty good.
Yeah. So,
but anyway, we're talking a lot about, but it all boils back to how we're going to be doing media going forward. And podcasting is still an audio-based medium. We love doing the live stuff because we can chit-chat with the audience that's on. It's people that, I think everyone's on Facebook that's hung with us today. And if you haven't checked in, make sure you do so before we wrap the show up. But I think that, the media possibilities today are so incredible. You think about where we've come.
Right.
The first time I was doing live, that would have been, I think 9 years ago. We were doing on Ustream. Ustream still in business? I don't even know.
I'm not sure. I haven't looked in a while.
Yeah, me neither. We were using Ustream, and they got bought by somebody. I can't remember what happened to Ustream. But, I'm looking on Google, and I don't even think they exist anymore. But we started on Ustream and pushing one stream, and now I'm using Wowza, and I can press it usually works pretty well to push to multiple destinations at once.
Right.
Base cost me $20 a month to get started, gives me 10 hours. And, we're doing more than 10 hours a month now, so I'm incurring a little bit extra charge, but, I can push to Twitter, Twitch, Mixer, Facebook, YouTube. Awesome. It is awesome.
Yeah. Hey, Todd, did you hear about this new newsletter that's being started coming out of China around podcasting? It's called JustPod.
Is it going to be English or is it going to be in Chinese?
It's going to be in English. It's written by a Chinese fellow who lives, I believe he lives in Hong Kong or Taiwan.
So justpod.com?
Justpod.substack.com.
Wasn't there a site that was JustPod before?
I'm not sure.
JustPod is for sale on GoDaddy. It's part. Substack.com. He should buy that domain before I do. No, I won't buy that domain.
But his name is Yang Yi. If I'm probably slaughtering that. That's probably not how you pronounce it. But he's a 31-year-old podcaster living in Shanghai, China.
Mm-hmm.
And he's going to start writing, or he is starting to write a newsletter about podcasting, and more specifically focused on the Chinese podcast industry. So
so he's got a little bio and everything in here.
Right.
It says, why are you doing this in English? He said, you heard the story of the Tower of Babel in the Bible, right? Explains why people speak different languages. Before I embarked on the journey, I worked at CNBC Style Business TV Network. So
he must have spent time in the U.S. then.
Yeah, or worked in a
satellite office for CNBC. Yeah.
He said, visit Gimlet Wondering Podprint UK. Hopefully he covers, will be interesting to see what's going on in the Chinese space.
Well, I invited him to come on the show.
Okay.
here. So hopefully we'll be able to get him to join us, and maybe we can persuade him to look at the whole medium and not mirror what he does off of Nickwa.
Yeah. And hopefully, too, on next Wednesday, I'm going to be inviting a new app developer to come on for about 15 minutes to talk about their app. They're doing some unique things for a podcast app. They're going to come on and we'll get the quick 411 on that and talk a little bit. But are you trying to get someone else to join us on Wednesday?
Yes, I am, Todd.
Any luck so far?
It's looking promising so far.
Oh, maybe we'll have to push the podcast app to Saturday then.
Well, I mean, unless we want to stage them at different times in the program, potentially.
Well, I think if we get who you want, we can probably. Is it more than one or just one?
Probably just going to be one person. Yeah.
Will it be? Can we use a whole hour and a half?
I don't know who it's going to be yet.
Oh.
They haven't decided who it's going to be yet.
Oh.
So, yeah.
Oh, this will be mysterious, huh?
Yes. Well, I kind of have to be mysterious.
So, Rob won't say it. I don't know for sure. Rob has not, just so we're clear. So Rob doesn't get in trouble. Rob has divulged nothing to me, and I tried to get him to tell me something after we were off the show yesterday.
Right.
Or on Wednesday, and he wouldn't tell me. So, he wouldn't tell me. I was a little pissed. So, he has not divulged anything NDA-wise, but I think we have something coming from Google. That's my hypothesis. So maybe we'll have someone on from maybe, again, it might be some other company. I might be completely wrong.
Yes, of course you might be.
So when are we expecting this announcement? Can you even say that?
Prior to that. Are you surprised?
So Monday is probably not a good PR day. So probably in my hypothesis, it's probably Tuesday. We'll see an announcement. That's my
nice guess, Todd.
Oh, my guess. So but you're not confirming or denying. So, oh, it's so funny.
Yes, it is. Yes.
So, are we excited about? So, okay, I'm not speaking to you. So, podcast audience, no. So, the people on Facebook, are we excited about what Google's maybe going to be announcing? You guys have been listening.
They know what Google's announcing. Are they announcing anything?
All right. Speculation is Google's announcing something, and my hypothesis. And Rob has told me nothing.
Which is a problem because you're my co-host. So, right.
Yeah, if I was signed on NDA, we wouldn't. Yeah, so I can say stuff because I haven't signed nothing. Right. So I can speculate.
Right. Yeah.
But maybe it's Amazon. Maybe Amazon's announcing something. It could be Amazon. We'll laugh about this on Wednesday, but. Oh, you did 2 hands up.
I don't know.
Because
maybe it's a twofer, Todd.
So little birds have been sending me notes saying there's 2 announcements coming next week from two major players. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because now is the time, Todd.
So now is the time, but here's the thing. It just happened to fall during this mayhem that's going around. So
it'll be a nice distraction, maybe.
Will give us a lot to talk about. So should I push the app developer to Saturday? Because we're going to have enough to talk about whatever they're announcing to probably go an hour and a half or 2 hours.
Maybe.
Maybe. So maybe means it's not that much to talk about. So,
mm-hmm.
Well, we'll be able. Okay, so should I plan on showing screens?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So something is going to be available for us to look at. Oh, I need to start looking at log files see what's happening for weird log entries from podcast consumption.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, I should.
I don't know, Todd. I'm just agreeing with whatever you're saying.
Oh, I love it. Anyway, yeah, the whole audience is being quiet. Did you guys all go away?
Yeah, I think some did because they're getting frustrated with us, Todd.
All right, for those of you listening, next week's supposedly be a big week. Is this going to be considered an inflection point? Is this like an Apple saying we've added podcasting to what was then iTunes?
I don't think I'd put it on that scale.
Oh, okay. Shit. And we've already deduced that it isn't for listeners; it's more for podcasters. So, all right. Well, I guess we're gonna, in my speculation, we're gonna have Google Analytics for podcast in Google. So that would be my guess. Be careful; you don't want to break your NDA with your hms.
That's an interesting hypothesis.
Oh, so I might be very close to the truth there. All right, so good. Well, we'll see. But again, how many people does Google have working on their podcast team now? A couple hundred, I heard. At least that's what I understood back at Podcast Movement.
Yeah, I think it depends on who you consider to be working on podcasts. I think that there's team members that are split between other projects too. So, I'm not sure that I know a number.
Google, if you're listening, I still want the audio button on the Google search. I know that's core, but boy, oh boy, if we get Sergi and all those folks to agree to put the audio search on the normal Google search resort, you would just like make my whole year. I really think that would be a listener inflection point. But maybe enough people, maybe people don't click those buttons. I know I click them a lot for images.
Yeah. I think just on a discovery basis, I think it would be helpful.
Yeah, I think it'd be really big, but that's what Google puts there is a lot about how Google makes money too. So
good point.
Yeah. So if it's not adding,
I mean, if video's there, why can't there be audio?
Yeah.
I hate to say it. Yeah.
But YouTube is their baby, so that's why they have video there. So they want to drive people to YouTube. They don't want to, and they make money on YouTube. They don't make money on podcasts yet.
Yeah. Yeah, nice try on that one, Todd.
Interesting. Okay. All right, we're way past an hour and a half, so
yeah, we are.
We'll be back on Wednesday at 3 p.m. Pacific. No. 3 p.m. Eastern, 12 noon Eastern.
Right.
And maybe we'll have a guest from Google, Amazon, or Apple. We don't know. One of those big groups.
Did you just say the word Apple, Todd?
Yeah, I did. Because Apple could be announcing something too. You haven't.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. Okay.
Daniel says, we already know there's a Google Podcast Console coming. They let anyone apply, but those who get in are not supposed to talk about what's inside. Oh, Daniel, I didn't know about a Google Podcast Console. Rob is being very quiet. So I guess, Daniel, we get to see what the Google Podcast Console is. All right, we'll see everybody on Wednesday. I'm Todd at blueberry.com. My Twitter account is at Geek News. Rob?
I can be found on Twitter at Rob Greenlee. That's with 2 E's. You can send me an email to robg@libsyn.com.
And if anybody wants to play around in Second Life and just kind of see what it is, message me in system Todd Levitt, LEVITT, and I'll add you to a group, and then you can get access to the property and do stupid virtual stuff. So happy to have you on board if you want to play around. I need some builders. Okay. Anyway, that's all we've got. We'll see you next time here on the New Media Show, and we'll be back again on Wednesday. Everyone be safe. Take care. We'll see you next time.
Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.